Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Where is the way to the dwelling of the light, and where is the abode of darkness? Job 38, 16-17 and 19. Far, far below, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day. J.R.R. Tolkien. And those who will take a weapon to such an enemy must be sterner than steel, if the very shock shall not destroy them. J.R.R. Tolkien. Who can strip off its outer garment? Who can penetrate its double coat of mail? Who can open the doors of its face? Job 41, 5-6. He came nearer, dawning upon me like a growing thought. He was a knight, armed from head to heel, mounted upon a strange-looking beast whose form I could not understand. The words which I heard him sing were like these: Heart be stout, and eye be true, good blade out, and ill shall rue. Courage, horse, thou lack'st no skill, well thy force hath matched my will. For the foe with fiery breath at a blow is still in death. Gently, horse, tread fearlessly, 'tis his course that burdens thee. The sun's eye is fierce at noon, thou and I will rest full soon, and new strength, new work will meet, till at length long rest is sweet. And now horse and rider had arrived near enough for me to see, fastened by the long neck to the hinder part of the saddle, and trailing its hideous length on the ground behind, the body of a great dragon. It was no wonder that, with such a drag at his heels, the horse could make but slow progress, notwithstanding his evident dismay. We had not gone very far before we arrived at a little cottage, from which, as we drew near, a woman rushed out with the cry, My child! My child! Have you found my child?" "I have found her," replied the knight, "but she is sorely hurt. I was forced to leave her with the hermit as I returned. You will find her there, and I think she will get better. You see, I have brought you a present. This wretch will not hurt you again." And he undid the creature's neck and flung the frightful burden down by the cottage door. The woman was now almost out of sight in the wood, but the husband stood at the door, with speechless thanks in his face. "You must bury the monster," said the knight. "If I had arrived a moment later, I should have been too late. But now you need not fear, for such a creature as this very rarely appears in the same part twice during a lifetime." "Will you not dismount and rest you, Sir Knight?" said the peasant, who had by this time recovered himself a little. "That I will, thankfully," said he, and dismounting he gave the reins to me and told me to unbridle the horse and lead him into the shade. "You need not tie him up," he added. "He will not run away." When I returned after obeying his orders and entered the cottage, I saw the knight seated without his helmet and talking most familiarly with the simple host. A nobler countenance I never saw. Loving kindness beamed from every line of his face. It seemed as if he would repay himself for the late arduous combat by indulging in all the gentleness of a womanly heart. But when the talk ceased for a moment, he seemed to fall into a reverie. Then the exquisite curves of the upper lip vanished. The lip was lengthened and compressed at the same moment. You could have told that within the lips the teeth were firmly closed. The whole face grew stern and determined, all but fierce. Only the eyes burned on, like a holy sacrifice uplift on a granite rock. The woman entered with her mangled child in her arms. She was pale as her little burden. She gazed with a wild love and despairing tenderness on the still, all but dead face, white and clear from loss of blood and terror. The night rose. The light that had been confined to his eyes now shone from his whole countenance. He took the little thing in his arms, and with the mother's help undressed her and looked to her wounds. The tears flowed down his face as he did so. With tender hands he bound them up, kissed the pale cheek, and gave her back to her mother. When he went home, all his tale would be of the grief and joy of the parents, while to me, who had looked on, the gracious countenance of the armed man, beaming from the panoply of steel over the seemingly dead child, while the powerful hands turned it and shifted it and bound it, if possible, even more gently than the mother's, formed the centre of the story. George MacDonald. Everything gathers in and around the child. Life and its meaning are found here. To safekeep and defend the innocence it contains, so that it can remain free to make its own life choice, uninfluenced by any power. The experience of children against children left me speechless, wordless, for a long time. I could never forget it. Children's abuse of children. Such an abyss I had never before glimpsed. The deepest fall. That such an abyss exists in human life. That it spans such a gulf. Lucky are those who do not need to discover it, who do not need to know it, much less to experience it. But some of us have to know it. When it has crossed my life, I cannot look away. Besides, it is precisely the knight's calling, his fight against the dragon. This is its work. The knight's enemies are dragons, and the greatest of all dragons is fear, I have claimed. So then, what is the greatest terror? Where is the abode of darkness? With the one who eats little children, the destroyer of children. This terror has its home in a place the light very seldom reaches, in the deepest hole at the bottom of the world. But what should defy and challenge it, if not light? Therefore, someone has to look at it. Someone has to shine fire into its eye and reveal its face, though it hates to be seen, and punishes those with its hatred who expose it. Its first commandment is that it must not be depicted. It claims to have no form, though this is only true of love. Love is the only thing which, according to its nature, is impossible to make an image of. And exactly for that reason, it does not need to lay down any law or any taboo against it. It knows that no one will ever succeed in making it visible to a third party. Only one who can be depicted successfully has a need to forbid it. Once upon a time, terror ruled over humans to such a high degree that they sacrificed their little ones to the darkness. They performed rituals you cannot even bear to read about today. Murder, maiming, rape, forced intoxication, all this against children. But in ancient times, it was adults' deeds against children. What can spread the evil to the children themselves, so that they sacrifice? one another. I asked Vasily, as always, when my questions concern darkness. He answered as he sometimes does, with a tale. In the heart of the fire, the child, the miracle of life, a new creature, new soul, out of two bodies, inconceivable even for the angels, this mystery. Only God understands it, and the devil hates it, and wishes to eat it up entirely. The soul-bodied life, the vulnerable in flesh and blood, with the thin skin that we can sense one another so strongly with, as no immortal, invulnerable being can. Before birth, the mother understands it when someone is formed out of the love encounter inside her. And the child understands it in its fight for birth, in the moment when it conquers nothingness and death. After birth, we understand life fully in our first breathing moment, until we forget our insight again, forget it from terror of our adversary, whom we will keep encountering throughout our lives, and in the end must joust against in the process of death, and there conquer in an entirely new way which neither mother nor child understand. Does God? Not even that do we know. Perhaps he did not originally, since Jesus had to walk through the kingdom of death on human feet. When we are born, we are most ourselves, and possess the greatest concentration of life.